Hi, welcome to Infinity Warrior. How you doing today? Do a little self-check. Are your neck muscles tight and tense? Is your breathing shallow and tight? Are you feeling stressed and anxious? Take some moments, do some deep breathing. Bring yourself to a peaceful place. Life can get a little bit too crazy, and especially if we are recovering from trauma, it can be kind of hard sometimes to check in with ourselves and know where we're truly at. So be kind to you and check in. Okay? This is a spot where we work on art within self. And today I have a really special guest. I am excited to be bringing you a conversation with psychotherapist Nick Kerry. He specializes in the recovery of codependency from narcissistic abuse. You can find his new mentoring service that he's just launched called Narc and Co. on the web at www.narcandco.com. Give them a look. There is so much information gathered in one space there. It is incredibly powerful and incredibly grounding if you're looking for the knowledge that you can break free. Because you can. You truly can begin to walk in your authentic self and not live a life where others are controlling you, where you are pleasing them, where you are showing up for everybody except for you. You get to come at the top of the pyramid of your own life. This recording that I'm sharing with you guys was done on a live on Instagram. You can find it over there if you want to watch it. It's either on Nick's page, Narc and Co., or mine, Infinity_Nation_, or on Facebook on Nick's Narc and Co. page on Facebook. You can watch the whole thing with goofy, silly facial expressions, or just enjoy it here on the podcast. I did notice the podcast recording of it, the clip of it, is a little louder than this, so please be aware the next clip after the commercial break is going to launch straight into the audio version of my conversation with psychotherapist Nick Kerry. It is a little bit louder, so be aware. You've been warned. Okay, everybody. Enjoy the episode. Stick around after Nick and Nita end the conversation, and we will close out our show here, Infinity Warrior, together. Thanks for showing up.
Nick, welcome. I'm so excited that you agreed to my crazy idea of coming on live with me and busting out of your comfort zone, because comfort zones are made for breaking out of.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Nita.
You're welcome. You're very brave.
First time live, so
I know.
hopefully it'll be all right.
It's going to be fabulous. Are you kidding? So Nick and I talk a lot under the business that he's launching, Narc & Co. So if you aren't following Narc & Co. yet, click up there on the drop down and go click follow Narc & Co. And if you're not following Nita, click follow Nita. Because the conversation that we want to have today is around the narcissistic codependent relationship. And it is a symbiotic relationship. I learned that really in talking to one of your mentors, which we'll talk about your mentoring service kind of more towards the end of our conversation.
Yep.
But when your mentor came back to me and said, well, that's the other side of the coin. It's a two-headed coin. And it was, even though with all the work that I have done to heal and to become who I am right this minute, it actually was still an aha moment. And I just want to encourage everybody, no matter how far you get down your journey of learning, you can still welcome aha moments and learn from people around you if you are open to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounded like an aha moment, Nita.
It was a complete aha moment. Hey, Nick, maybe you can kind of start us off here by talking about how did you become aware and actually decide to specialize in the really hot button topic of narcissism? And then there's that layer that people don't talk about very much, which is codependency. Maybe you can lead us off a little bit and let us learn about how you even became aware of this.
Yeah, it's kind of by accident in many ways.
Yeah, the best things are.
It was around 10 years ago, I got sort of contacted by some law firms to undertake some parental alienation assessments. Parental alienation is where there's a divorce proceedings and one parent tries to prevent the other parent having contact with the child and kind of colonizes them against the other parent.
The other parent.
So it was quite heavy work. I'd never done a particular assessment like that before. So during that process, I started to research parental alienation and come across a guy called Craig Childress, actually, who'd done lots of research into this particular dynamic. And I sort of discovered that the parental alienating parent was generally a borderline personality disorder or a narcissistic personality disorder. So it just got me interested in the subject. And I guess going through that process with the families and meeting with the codependent and the narcissistic parent, it was quite shocking at the time, the kind of the implications of that sort of narcissistic behavior, because the parents were literally preventing the other parent from seeing the child. So you have to ask yourself, what kind of person does that, right? Kind of emotionally abusing their own children, really. So that was, I think, the introduction to it for me. And then I continued to read and get more interested in narcissism at the time initially. And the more I understood it, the more I became aware of the presentations in my clinical practice. So I work with individuals, adults, young people and couples. And I just became, I guess like anything really, the more sort of information you have and the more knowledge you have of stuff, you kind of tune into these things in different ways. And as time went on, I started to realize that, a good percentage of my clients that I wouldn't have necessarily recognized sort of historically were connected one way or another, wherever it was a parent, a partner or a boss was connected to somebody that was displaying problematic narcissistic behavior,
So were you doing like marriage counseling at that time? Is that where you kind of started to notice it? Like, or was it individual and it just popped up out of those individual sessions? How did you kind of deepen the interest and the ability for you to recognize it, I guess?
I think it was both. It was both in the couple sessions and with individuals. I think when people were talking about their childhoods, for instance, I began to recognize that actually, the parental description was also describing narcissistic parenting, narcissistic behaviors towards the children. In couple sessions, it became quite obvious several times quite quickly that one of the partners was also presenting with these types of behaviors, which really looked like in the room highly defensive, highly controlling in the therapeutic context, which kind of renders the work a little bit tricky, really, because I think as a therapist working with couples, if you continue, I think sometimes what might happen clinically is, if people aren't aware of the narcissistic component, is that they will start to talk to the other, i.e. the potentially codependent partner, in a way that encourages them to change their behavior in order to accommodate, you know, the narcissist. So that's clearly abusive clinically, and I guess, you know, I guess I had to call it out a couple of times, not directly. I mean, I'm very careful not to sort of make huge
scream
jumps,
it out,
diagnose, you know, or talk about, you know, diagnosis, but nevertheless, problematic narcissistic behaviors, I would be having to suggest that the individual takes up individual psychotherapy rather than the couple work at that particular time. Yeah. And also, yeah, lots of individuals describing, I mean, the pattern that became very, very obvious was that the people coming to individual therapy had either been in adult relationships with a narcissist or were currently in those particular relationships, and also they had a narcissistic parent, and that pattern was extremely obvious, overt, and so prevalent that I think that's what kind of continued to motivate me, really, to understand all of these aspects sort of in as much detail as I could, really.
Are there certain behaviors that a narcissist, and we'll talk about the codependent side too, but starting with the narcissist, are there certain behaviors for those of us who are codependent? So I was codependent. I am fighting that battle and winning that battle. It's all how you talk to yourself, you guys. Are there certain behaviors, though, that if you are, I remember being Nita when I started that secret research of like, is this healthy? And honestly, the first time that you ask yourself, is this healthy? Not healthy, right? Just right there. That's your first, like, you need help. But are there certain things that people can be aware of, just be a little bit more self-aware of, so that you know that's a red flag? Whether you're in a relationship that's going sideways, or you're considering, you know, working someplace, or a romantic relationship or a friendship, are there certain things that are just red flags that you're like, oh, let's rethink that? Are there things that pop to mind?
Yeah, I mean, the overarching presentation is control and manipulation. So, you know, the narcissist, I mean, there's lots of different tactics, which I could probably talk about some of them, but I'm not aware. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. But
it's okay, just a couple.
But the controlling and manipulative sort of behaviour would, you know, would be the most obvious presentation. Extremely defensive. So, you know, below the false self, below the veneer, the facade of the personality is shame, and the defensive mechanisms that both the narcissist and the codependent present with actually are a protective mechanism against the shame. So I mean, gaslighting is a common term that people know about, which I guess is quite it's a common communication from the narcissist, because whenever you're trying, and it's under the umbrella of control again, because whenever you're trying to have a focused conversation about, you know, where there may be some difference of opinion, the gaslighting is used to shift the focus from what you're trying to get to a different reality, you know.
Yes,
and so
a different reality
yourself,
is the best way to say it.
Yeah, and so the codependent often, or the person on the other end, doesn't have to be a codependent, but the other will find themselves confused and lost in the conversation because it's moved somewhere else, you know.
Do you see the light bulbs of recognition? Like, oh.
Sounds like you've experienced that a few times, Nathan.
Anytime that you're saying, like, I think I'm going crazy, I cannot
Yeah.
tell you how many times through my
Yeah.
52 years of life that I have said, honest to God, I swear I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
When you start doubting your sanity, it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean you're going insane. It just might mean that you're surrounded by toxicity.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think, in fact, if you do find yourself feeling that you're going insane, that's a good indicator that you're on the end of a narcissistic projection.
If more people talked about that, so that when you're in the depth of upside down, just trying to survive and breathe and not,
Yeah.
going,
I mean, I think
I don't know how to say it, but I mean, really, honestly, you get to such a darkness.
Clinically, we talk about countertransference in the room. So if as a therapist I'm having an emotional experience that doesn't feel like it's a feeling that's actually mine, then I might be thinking, okay, there might be something going on with the client here. You know, if I'm suddenly starting to feel angry, and there's no reason why I should be angry, it may be the projective process of the client. So in a way, the gaslighting experience, when the person is feeling in a different reality or feeling confused, it's actually because it's a projection vis-a-vis the narcissist who's also feeling probably confused because they're trying to manipulate the reality that's trying to be sort of pinned down, you know. Obviously, they're very defensive, very blaming. There's no self-reflection. There's no responsibility taking. So they're like quite obvious ones that. And I think the thing is with the covert narcissist, which is the sort of the narcissist that's more sort of vulnerable and, you know, like I'm sure we can all identify with some grandiose sort of narcissistic leaders around the world. Come to mind quite succinctly, but that's the grandiose.
Okay, we're going to steer away from politics, though.
that's the grandiose, which kind of is more obvious to see, right?
Yeah.
But the covert is. I was thinking about. I think Malcolm X talked about the fox and the wolf. The wolf being the kind of overt kind of racist, and the fox being the sly, cunning racist. And actually, he suggested that the fox was the more dangerous one because, you know, you couldn't see them coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I sort of made that analogy the other day in my head. But I suppose the covert will be. It won't be obvious. So the person, you know, it doesn't. The abuse isn't kind of overt, it's covert, which makes it really. So when you describe when people describe what's going on to their friends, it sounds sort of like relatively ordinary if you don't understand that it's narcissistic abuse, right? And so that's why it's really difficult for people to gain clarity to exactly what's going on.
I'm going to redirect and take us back to when you were talking about the narcissist and control and manipulation. Because as we transfer into talking about the behaviors of the codependent, it could be like those are two behaviors of a codependent as well. And depending on where you are on that codependent scale from 0, 1 to 10, that narcissist can use that to pin the codependent in place, because like a codependent can be. I remember many a time I needed to control the storyline, the outcome that I was promised, because that was my safety net, right?
Yeah.
I feel the tears like way back here. I'm going to keep them way back there though, I promise. But the reality of it is like codependents can exhibit some unpleasant traits, behaviors.
Sure. I mean, I think the codependent can over-identify with a kind of Mother Teresa sort of.
I mean, rolling my eyes. Yeah.
So there's, they do. There is an identification with the benign, with the good, which it makes it sometimes difficult to see their own kind of controlling mechanisms. But I think the big difference really is that the codependent is usually trying to gain control through anxiety, through fear. I guess the same could be said for the narcissist, but the codependent isn't generally malignant. They're normally like coming from a good place, where the narcissist is often there's sadistic sort of elements running through the narcissist as well.
I can completely see the difference as you've
so
explained.
there are
that
some
there.
similarities, but mainly I think there's differences.
What other types of things would a codependent, what behaviors or habits would a codependent exhibit that we can be aware of? Because also, like, if you are out there in the world, you're a healthy person, you're probably going to recognize a codependent or a narcissist pretty quick and put up some boundaries because you have that skill set. But if you have not learned boundaries, if you're new in your journey and you're just getting trampled over all the time, boundaries, self-worth, self-respect, daily affirmations, those are all things that haven't come yet. So what are some just a couple things to be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the obvious one is people pleasing. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say that. Yeah.
That's the most obvious one.
Used to be one of those.
So I guess it might just be useful to think about, the idea of the false self.
What is that?
The false self was sort of coined by the theory of the false self was coined by Donald Winnicott, who was a British pediatrician and psychoanalyst in the 1950s, 60s. So he's like a massive name in the literature, and he studied mother-baby observations for many years, and his research was on sort of attachment and attunement, adult-child attunement, and what he found was that when there's a neglectful, narcissistic, sort of dysfunctional parental parent-child relationship, that the child develops a false self, which is a kind of a repression of their emotional world, because obviously, when the child's emotions are being invalidated by the parent, then that's a painful experience, and there's a constant feeling of rejection. And so the child will shut down their emotions in order to, as a coping strategy. It's an adaptive process to protect themselves. But so their emotional world will be repressed into the unconscious, and the false self will be acted out in the realms of compliance.
My childhood, my life is like ding 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 ding.
Yeah. And I think the thing is with these two phenomena in a way are that, like you just responded to, is that they are, for the narcissist and the codependent, they're pretty well mapped out, right? There's it starts with the false self, and the codependent will go into a more compliant, pleasing the parent for validation.
Yeah.
And the narcissist will false self will be acted out in a more inflated, more malignant way. But both of the developmentally, both have developed false selves. And sorry, what was the original question?
That's okay. The direction it went was fabulous. The original question was around just a couple behaviors that people could be aware of.
Yeah. So
and
pleasing,
you've given some of those. Yeah, people pleasing.
Yeah. So the codependent will be driven to meet the needs in the other. So the other person's needs are always paramount over their own.
Abandoning their own. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an abandonment of their own needs, and the pleasing of the other is where they receive their self-esteem from. So, if you please somebody and they say, "Oh, that's great, you're so nice," then that's the because of their self-esteem,
Yeah, I do know, Nick. Kind of sounds familiar. Okay, we've got some time left because Nick and I agreed to go a little bit longer. And Nick, I'm going to ask you this: is there hope for the codependent? I'm gonna back up. I hate the word hope. Oh, you and I had that conversation, right? And I've always had a disgusting hate, then acceptance, then love relationship with hope, right? In that teardrop level, hope is microscopic down here in the Nita world, because hope can tie you to really bad things. Hope tied Nita to, decades of staying in the same place without trusting her gut, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Did you want to say something about hope? I feel like you do.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting point in the sense that the hope is dangerous when because the codependent will be hoping that the narcissist is going to change. That's where the hope is dangerous, right? So the hope is always that, I don't know, the job might change, the narcissist might change, they might, the money might change. So that's where hope's dangerous, because of course it doesn't. The narcissist isn't going to change, and so it's false hope. Maybe it's false hope connected to the false self. But where hope is important is that, of course, the codependent can change. And in my experience, obviously, I was at this conference a few years ago, actually, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he was a psychoanalyst from New York, and he said, I'm sure he said much more significant and important things than this, but you normally just remember the stuff that's not intellectually sort of above your head. And he said, he said that your clients will often be the healthiest people in their families.
That totally is true.
Yeah, and so it sort of hit me that, and I thought, of course, that's true, because the people that come for therapy are the people that have developed some insight into themselves, the current situation, and are brave enough to come to make changes, right? Where the
a ton of courage.
Of these people often wouldn't touch therapy with a barge pole. So back to the point in terms of the codependent, of course, that's why I don't want to label everybody codependent, but it's a bit of a catch-all sometimes, these labels. But the people that therapy are often presenting with those more codependent personality styles, and therefore, of course, there's room for change. But I guess it's just to say that, characteristics, hence how I describe the developmental process, they're embedded from childhood, right? So they've done it, and there's no kind of quick fix. People definitely change, but it's not a quick fix,
It is not a quick fix. I can attest to that, and I will testify to that. But once you take that plunge, and I've switched from using the word hope to faith, and I just published a blog on it last night over on yourinfinitynation.com, because for me, faith is living in the now, and it is really like, I have faith that I am going to follow through with my action plans. I have faith in Nita to do the things that she set in front of her. And the moment that I decided that I was worthy of therapy and worthy of spending the money on myself to heal, there was no turning back. I did not step out of it at a moment. 2 years straight domestic abuse therapy plus 6 to 8 months of family with divorce therapy with the kids and I. And then I transitioned into domestic abuse therapy. It took a long time to find a therapist who even had some expertise, has a lot of expertise in that, not some, a lot. And it was 3 weeks before she introduced the idea of my family dynamic and it all just clicked into place. It went right back to my childhood, which I was completely oblivious of. But my trust and faith really led me through 2 years of intense therapy, double, triple sessions. And then if you add on mom breaking generational abuse and going to her children's sessions, sometimes I would have 5, 6, 7 hours of therapy in a week. And so I've probably been going to therapy for about 5 years, right? Right? And it's been the most amazing journey of my life. And my children are no longer suffering suicidal ideation, self-harming, all of the toxicity, the gaslighting of their mother, the abuse of their mother. This is something that my kids know I talk about. They are okay with me talking about it. Because what I have learned, and you said something about this earlier, I can't recall exactly, but when you shine the light in there, might have been on our pre-conversation, but when you take the light and you shine it into those dark crevices and those breaks, that's really where you can start having the power. You can start taking your power back. And that's really what I've experienced. And that is one of the reasons that I speak out and I'm so passionate about it. And that's also why I was so really honestly excited to make your acquaintance and, get access to all of your knowledge, because knowledge is best when it is shared. It truly is best when it's shared. It's my opinion. Is there hope for our narcissists to heal? Sorry, go ahead with your thought and then we'll pick up on that.
Well, no, I was just going to say, well done for putting yourself through the
thank you, jazz hands,
the therapy grind.
I'll tell you what, it wasn't easy. People in my family lineage have tried to beat me out of therapy, right? They've tried to shame me out of therapy. Therapy is going to change you too much. Yeah, that's true. It's going to give me boundaries and it's going to make you stop abusing me. So that's not going to feel very good to you.
It's going to take your supply away.
Exactly. And that's where you have to have the courage to continue. Yeah.
In terms of the narcissist change, and I think the overwhelming evidence is that it's extremely, chances are pretty limited, I would say. I wouldn't want to say 100%. I think, sometimes, if we see it on a continuum, obviously, I think a small percentage would be able to change. But but if you think about, it's hard enough for anybody to change.
Yeah.
Without the diagnosis.
It's devastatingly hard.
Stick a narcissistic personality disorder in the mix, and chances are 90% reduced, sort of thing. So yeah, I think the codependent, in my experience, is far more likely to change. Because they realize.
You said the codependent, right? You said the codependent.
Yeah.
Our connection is a little scrunchy, so sorry.
Okay.
But you're 8 hours ahead of me in the future, so I think we're doing pretty good on the connection, honestly, since the whole time continuum thing. So, yeah.
Technology is pretty good, yeah.
I know, it's amazing. So, with the codependent has the best chance of healing, right? Because they're more likely to take that step, right? That's where you were saying before I cut you off, and I apologize.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, much greater chance of change. Like I say, the behaviours and the communications are quite embedded, and I have worked with people for a while, and they do go on to repeat the relationship with another narcissist.
If you don't heal it, you repeat it.
Yeah. So I didn't heal them in therapy, obviously. So that's
that's not what I meant. They obviously left therapy early because it's really hard to do the work. I'm not going to lie. There are a lot of nights spent with even my children. Like, my PTSD got so bad that my therapist, we had a multiple therapy meetings, family therapy meetings, where she educated my children. When you see your mom do this, 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 and this, this is what we have to do. Like, they couldn't, because they would run to me to hug on me when I would suddenly start living in the past, right? And we had to relearn an entire dynamic. And I have 4 children, and 2 of them were highly abusive, highly abusive. So it took a lot. It took a lot for me to grab onto those kids and myself and not let go, regardless of what anybody else said or thought. But you know what? You get to a point where you're just done.
Yeah.
You are done. You cannot have it anymore.
Yeah.
Nick, before we go on,
it's
go ahead. It's
Yeah.
not what? Oh, I was just going to tell everybody.
You know.
We've got a lag, and so that's why we're talking over each other. I'm sorry. It isn't easy. And that's why, you know, I don't want to discourage anybody from ever going to therapy. And I think that that's where, like, a coach like Nita can come in handy. I often coach people to get to therapy, or a mentor. Yep. Those are really, really helpful places to help you get to deeper healing. And not everybody is going to go to the level of deeper healing that Nita has done. But if you do, there are lots of support anchors and tools to help get you there. Nick, before we go on to the next question, I want to let everybody know we've got about 11 minutes left. And so in that 11 minutes, if you want to comment some questions down below, when we get to the last 4 minutes or so, we'll read those comments and questions in, and we'll let Nick address those, because we have a fabulous resource and specialist in front of us. And I want to be sure that we give him some time at the very, very end to talk about his business, Narc & Co., that he has just launched in addition to his independent psychotherapy work. Okay. So Nick, while people are typing in their comments and questions there was another question on my list here that I wanted to. Healthy narcissism. Boom, go. I had to look, and we're on a time crunch there, but I want to address healthy narcissism. As I started to break away from my unhealthy space, I was accused of being a narcissist because I'm a beautiful woman, and I wear makeup, and I do my hair, and I wear a dress. It's a $5 dress, but I wear a dress, right? So those attacks can come at you, and when you're new and brand, like barely getting your traction under you, it can steal your traction. So what is the difference between healthy and unhealthy narcissism?
Well, I guess valuing yourself as you just described would be healthy narcissism, right? You know, so
yes, I'm going to say yes, because I'm learning all the time.
Healthy
right,
narcissism,
but that's
healthy narcissism is having a positive relationship with yourself and valuing yourself, and you know that will also, that's come from your therapeutic journey, right? Because when
it has.
when you're not in that, when you're in that kind of codependent dynamic with the narcissist, you're not feeling too great about yourself. That's what is being compounded by low self-esteem. You know, so yeah, I mean, the term narcissism is complex in the sense that we need healthy narcissism. Like, so the codependent will often be low on. So on the website, narcandco.com,
letter N.
There's an evidence-based narcissism test, and you know, you can discover, you know, what range you were at, but it also feeds back if you're low on the narcissism as well, not just high on the narcissism. So I'd sort of conceptualize it as healthy narcissism. I'm not saying this is just my way of breaking it up simply, but healthy narcissism, problematic narcissism, and then sort of malignant kind of pathological narcissism. And I guess if you're a borderline of problematic and malignant, then you know that's when the sort of the relationships are generally abusive.
That's a really hard thing for a narcissist or a borderline narcissist to admit. I mean, it's hard enough to admit you're the abusee, you're the victim. It's hard enough to come to grips with the shame and the guilt around that. But on the flip side of that, you would have to be a very willing to be enlightened person, and I've experienced those souls Okay, I have run into those souls as I have gone my own journey. And it just like any healing process, it's a dip in and out, right? You can dip into it and be very enlightened and self-aware, and then you go, oh, too much, and you dip out. And that's how the healing process works. It really is how it works. But it really, for Nita, and you deepen this some, it is about when you're in those enlightened moments, garnering your support system around you so that when you dip back out and you're spinning out of control, like when I was having PTSD so active, or when I discovered codependency and I was upside down in shame. Oh my gosh, my sweet therapist texted me 3 times over the weekend. And she always would tell me, you never abuse like calling me on the weekend. If you are out of control, you don't have to sit there and suffer, because I would come back in and the next week I'd be like, right? Because I had suffered through the weekend trying to figure it out on my own. And she was like, stop doing that. And I'd be like, but I did it, right? I did
Nice
it.
therapist. Nice therapist.
Yes, very nice therapist, very invested in my journey because I fully trusted and applied what she said. She was an anchor and a guide to me. I gave all my trust, which isn't hard for a codependent to do. Let's get real. We're a people pleaser. We trust. We want to please. So it's the perfect. Once I decided to go, I was all in, baby. There was no turning back.
So we're going to go on to questions, or
yeah, we are. I didn't know if you had a follow-up on that.
Talk about Narc and Co. Or...
No, let's go into questions real quick, and because I'm going to close out with Narc and Co. Let's see, glasses. Oh, please. Or do you want to read them in?
Comments.
From Pigment of My Imagination, I've seen narcissistic behavior reduced in 12-step work, specifically addicts seeing their patterns and harmful behaviors and following a spiritual path to get out of controlling traits. And then continues, in which case putting in the action and doing the work is key rather than merely self-awareness. And then i.e. beyond just speaking therapy, but deep and profound changes. Do you want me to continue to read on, Nick, and give you all of them, and then you can kind of walk through them?
No, we'll just do one.
Or do you want to? Okay, so that's everything from Pigment of My Imagination. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of great, isn't it? That that person's observed, some narcissistic behaviours changing, and yeah, like I say, that's it's ability, and I guess what she's saying is that self-awareness is the first bit, isn't it? It's a bit like the addiction program that she was mentioning. Really, it's the self-awareness is the start, recognizing that you've got the problem. The sort of pre-contemplative stage, I think, is the cycle of change would call it. But then, yeah, once you get into the real, you have to get into the real stuff in order to bring about. I guess it's like first order change and second order change is another way of looking at it. First order change is where people change superficially for a while, and they think there's a change, but it's more cognitive and intellectual rather than emotional, because real change is more of a deeper emotional process.
And it also, what do you think of time and real world triggers? When we take ourselves out of that controlled environment and we start having more things hit on us, more draws, more temptations to our, old habits and behaviors returning, right? It really is how we stand for ourselves in each of those tests and trials that's going to determine over a measure of time if we've truly moved through it and mastered it, right? And I've been doing therapy for a long time, and I'm nowhere near, I'm conscious now. I've reached a sense of consciousness and self-awareness, which is brand new. It's in its infancy. But it really is going to depend on the anchors that I have around me and the work that I continue to do every single hour of every single day, because it would be super easy to slip backward.
Yeah, well, I think one of the there's some traps, that we fall into. And I guess we've all got our personality characteristics, and within those, you know, irrespective of codependency and narcissism, we've all got our flaws and our vulnerabilities, and you know, as we get into, I guess, middle age, we theoretically become more aware of those because we've been acting them out for a longer period of time. And so familiarity and comfort is, of course, one of the two of the traps, and that's often due to people wanting to reconnect with old toxic patterns of childhood, right? So, you know, if dad treated you a certain way, well, okay, you know, that wasn't very nice, but it was how it was, and therefore there's a familiarity to that and a comfort in it, despite it being toxic. So, the true marker of change is when you stop falling into your traps, into your old patterns. Yeah.
I'm going to go on to the next one, and this is from Hey Patamos. I wish to enjoy this wonderful conversation on my page, but it's hacked. But I love to stay here with this account. Thank you, sir. I hope that you do get your page recaptured and back over. Amazing topic.
What does it mean, hacked?
Thank you, sir. His page. So Patamos is like the most positive energy, spiritually uplifting young soccer player in the world, right? He's just fantastic. But his main page got stolen by somebody. It was taken over. And so he's got a backup page and he's trying to recover that. So
okay.
Here's all the best of luck. Probably taken over by a narcissist, sorry to say. I couldn't resist. Just saying the obvious there. Okay, you guys, we are going to wrap up here in just a moment. You've got about 2 minutes there while Nick talks about Narc & Co. And you can, if you have any follow-up questions or comments, type those in right now. We'll read them in and let Nick talk about those. So Narc & Co. Again, go up there, drop-down menu, follow Narc & Co. if you're not following right now. Follow Infinity Nation if you're not following right now. We will hopefully be doing more of these lives because they're fabulous and informative. And I really appreciate you coming on. Talk about Narc & Co. So the actual company name is Narc & Co., like on Instagram. On the web, though, it's not the full word and, it's the letter N. Amazing resource. Oh my gosh, amazing resource. You guys, you have to go and look at www.narcandco.com. Nick.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of information on the website, but the idea came about a couple of years ago, really, when I was kind of networking and meeting people that, you know, like yourself, really, that had experienced narcissistic abuse, but that, you know, didn't. I know you're a coach, Nita, but you know these guys didn't have any qualifications, but they'd experienced narcissistic abuse, and they were, as I got to know them, they were very insightful, psychologically minded people, and I sort of thought, well, actually, like, you know, not everybody needs therapy, and some people might prefer mentoring than therapy, and also some therapists. You know, their knowledge and skill set isn't particularly within narcissism codependency. So I thought, you know, these guys could actually offer a good therapeutic supportive service to people at varying stages of the kind of abusive cycle. You know, the kind of codependent historically, so they would understand that from a personal and sort of intellectual sort of perspective, and they would have experienced narcissistic abuse and been in relationships, whether parentally, romantically, etc. So I proposed the idea of a mentoring service to them. People were really interested, so we've spent the last sort of year training people up, you know, in my front room every week, developing the website, developing some of the business structures, and and now they're providing some mentoring, to people in need, So yeah, hopefully it's going to be a good service. It's quite new in the making, but
it's already, I mean, you set a target of opening in February, and you're already accepting, your doors are open, you're accepting clients before your target date. I think that's this is Coach Nita coming out, but I think that's a really good sign of the need and validity of what you're doing. In addition, when people go to your website, the amount of information and again, I'm not going to use the word hope, I'm going to use the word faith. You give people the ability to believe that they have the opportunity to change, that there is, if they can take that first step, that there is the opportunity for a life that honors everything within them that they have been squelching and silencing.
I can't emphasize enough actually how, even recently with a client, I've checked that I can mention this, by the way, but he read the website, and we had a session focused very much on a workplace situation. And once he had read the website and fully recognized, the characteristics of the narc boss, so to speak, it was a different presentation the following week because he'd been so empowered. So, he'd just been empowered by the knowledge and the penny dropping, because then you can reposition yourself immediately once you know what you're dealing with, I guess if you're sort of riding a bull, if you get on this is going to be a crap analogy.
All in.
If you jump on a bull and try to ride that, and you're on the wrong beast, you should have jumped on the horse. You're going to have a very different experience. But if you jump on the right beast, you're going to ride it well. So as soon as that knowledge is there, it can be just simplistically on the surface, it can bring about some change. Yeah.
Well, I think that is absolutely fabulous. A mentoring resource from people healed who went through narcissistic abuse is just really a safe space for people who need to have really private conversations and get some guidance from somebody who's walked that same path. I am incredibly excited and proud that you have done this work. I'm proud of getting to be a conversational part of it. And I look forward to more conversations like this where we can invite people in to hear more about how you can recognize narcissistic abuse and codependency and how you can walk through the fire that is within you into a life of truly honoring your authenticity for the first time.
Well, thanks for setting this up, Nita, and thanks for
you're welcome
to talk about the work, and Narc and Co. So that really appreciate that.
Well, I am really proud of you for being so courageous to come on and to trust me. That was a huge leap of faith. Thank you. Everybody who has joined us, you guys are absolute warriors, and I appreciate you so much, as does Nick. We are going to continue this conversation, continue building around everything the good stuff that's happening over on Narc & Co. Give him a follow. Go check out his website. And at any time that you want to reach out to him, you can DM him through his website. You can email him through his website or contact him there, or you can contact him right here through Instagram. He's also over on Facebook under Narc & Co. So give him a follow over there as well. Nick, thank you so much. Everybody, I am going to end our live and save this. Please share it. Tag Nick, tag Nita, and we will look forward to having those conversations with you guys on our next live. Have an amazing day, everybody. Nick, thank you so much, and I'll see you back on our Zoom.
Thanks, Nita. Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Powerful conversation. Powerful conversation. And a huge shout out to Nick and his team of mentors. Super excited to be doing consulting work with them. Absolutely have. I have had a blast. I have had a blast working with this new business. And as you can see, They are doing a lot of really good things. They're all based off the knowledge and heartfelt efforts of psychotherapist Nick Kerry. So go give them a follow on Instagram, Facebook, and check them out over there on the web. If you are in any way triggered by any of that, I know some of the feedback from the video online was, I recognized my people pleasing inside that. I recognized my addiction within that. I recognized, and there was a whole line of them. So, just know that if you do recognize something about yourself or somebody around you, it is not a bad thing. It is not a bad thing to recognize the things within us that we want to grow through, that we want to understand, or that we want to deepen a ability to not repeat, right? We want to shore up our boundaries, and understanding of things helps us do that. Thank you, guys. This was a long episode, a long show, and you are greatly appreciated. Check out my work as a coach and a consultant over on yourinfinitynation.com. Give me a follow on Instagram at infinity_nation_. Love to see you over there. Love to have you a part of the conversation. And I just look forward to the next podcast that we do together. Looking for guests on lives and podcasts all the time. Lots of opportunities for coming up on blogs, and just to have your voice, your story featured. If you're interested in that, reach out and let me know. Looking forward to it, and have some fabulous guests lined up. A new author lined up. Super excited about a new author that wrote a book about recovery from narcissism from the male perspective. So incredibly excited about that, and looking forward to bringing you more healing work. You guys have an amazing day. And I am incredibly proud of you. I'm incredibly proud of the work that you are doing to walk into your authentic self. I'll talk to you soon.